Okie dokie. See if I can get this going properly on the first try. Excellent. Alright, so setting up those sweet timestamps. Phenomenal. Excellent. Alright, so basically backing out doing another build. So as per my video a few weeks ago, or the videos a few weeks ago, basically I reworked a bunch of my reloading weapon builds here in Crossout. So not that I really use a whole lot of them, but they're here in any case. So one of the ones that I still haven't touched is the Stampede. So that was built back when the Colossus gave plus reload speed. Now it doesn't, so I need to rework it. And I did also have, this is actually one of two functional art builds I had. The other one, for those who don't recall and or weren't there, I say is I don't have the screen open on the right page. Excellent. Alright, let's try this again. Phenomenal. Alright, so I had a few reloading builds that were rebuilt, namely this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. I didn't actually make this on stream. I also didn't make these two on stream, but I'm just currently doing trials with them. So this is my epic turret trial, and then my epic mine trial. But in any case, I had two semi-functional art builds, the one of which was kind of World War I-esque, the Fury. So that one is basically complete. Still haven't thought of anything else different that I need to do with it, so probably going to stay labeled as complete for the time being. And then the other one being the one I've downloaded, the Stampede. I did also make, to be fair, for the reload build ones, I did also make this, which I'm sure is of great interest to Bang Shield, although it does have 3 likes, which leads me to believe that at least one of them is already them. But in any case, why do I have this downloaded twice? Cool, that makes things easier because I can free up a slot. Wonderful. Cool. And then the other build was Stampede. So, like I said, plan is to work on updating that today. So, basically running the Carapace cabin due to the current fusion event going on, which is for cabins. I did fuse my Carapace cabin. So I did get the coveted mass fusion after a mere 3 attempts. So that was cool. Now it's interesting to note though, the Carapace is obviously a very slow cabin. So if I just pull up it, let me pull up a blank one so you can see all the values beside each other. Excellent. So for each category, of course, if you fuse, you can only get one of these 3 values, and then you get one for each. So the self-destruct ones don't really matter, like, at all. I'd say maybe delay makes the most sense just because it's a big slow build. It's going to be kind of hard to stay near things for long, if at all. So I got that on the mass one, so that's cool. But in any case, very heavy, slow cabin is the Carapace. So obviously having minus mass is pretty much like the best fusion of these 3 for most cabins. There are some exceptions, but by and far mass is preferred because these other ones are just basically increasing your health, and if you shave off a significant chunk of mass due to the heavy weight of a cabin, then you can more than make up for the lost, 10% durability. Yeah, the power ones don't really matter. So handling is kind of where it gets dodgy. So different people are going to have different priorities. Generally speaking, people want plus weight limit, so max mass, because that is the be-all end-all limiter other than parts for a build, because you can have a build be however over tonnage you want, but as soon as it's at its mass limit or above its mass limit, you literally can't go into battle with it. So it's kind of like one of the hard values you can't really work around a whole lot. Like you can add wheels to get your tonnage up to the mass limit. You can fuse for plus mass, which is kind of what I'm talking about here. You can add an engine which adds its mass, but otherwise it's a pretty hard cap. So that's preferred in a lot of instances, but it's interesting to note, specifically for the Carapace and the cabins I built with it, I'm kind of thinking maybe cabin tonnage is the way I want to go, although a significant boost in power would also be potentially usable. So, for instance, most of the other purple heavy cabins are max power already, so it's kind of hard to tell if a power fusion actually affects them at all. Like, you'll see it doesn't even show any yellow on the bar there for power. Actually, it's interesting to note they do have. Let's see. Where are you? Nah, you're a power fusion. Okay. So it's interesting to note that with this update that we just got today, they actually added in a bar showing tonnage fusion. Tonnage fusion? Some sort of fusion. What was it? I was mucking around. I fused the growl. And if I slap this down and the growl, maybe I'm just tripping. I could have sworn it was like a yellow bar mark rather than red. Maybe I'm just completely wrong about this. I don't know, maybe I misremember. I could have sworn it was a yellow bar mark. I wonder if that was something else. Do I have anything that has a tonnage fusion? Probably not. Rough. Okay, but in any case, I was thinking that I thought that they put a yellow marker for the bar if you had a tonnage fusion. Evidently, that's not the case. I was wondering if maybe they did the same thing for acceleration, but as you could see on... Whoops. Actually, either of these builds work. These ones which have a power fusion, you'll see that the bar is still like white. It's not yellow. So if there was any sort of bonus applied in the UI, and that I wasn't just tripping, which is seeming more and more possible as I continue staring at these values, then it would have been nice if there's some sort of indicator on here. In any case, so for this build and for the other one, you'll note that I'm at like not really near the max mass at all, but I'm near max tonnage. And that's why I'm thinking the plus tonnage might be a better fusion for the Carapace cabin, because for the two builds that I'm specifically using it for, which are playing to its very low speed cap, so a Geagle plus Goliath tracks, you don't really have a whole lot of options for slower movement parts. Like at that point you get into legs, at which point the Carapace will be negligible, because the bigger problem is the speed cap of 40 to begin with, which you can't increase other than with the step spider. But the Carapace could benefit from here in theory for adding tonnage. In this case I believe it's 10% tonnage, so it'd be another 600, which would put the bar right to the end here. Now again, mind you, of course I don't actually have the tonnage or the mass on this maxed out currently, but there isn't a whole lot of other movement options that I would consider putting on the Carapace other than Goliaths or these tank tracks. Just because pretty much everything else has a significantly higher speed cap, and the Carapace doesn't really benefit from those in any manner. So I haven't done anything with it as far as the actual tonnage fusion yet. Obviously I happened to roll mass. If I had rolled mass tonnage, I probably would have stuck with it and tried it out and see if it made much of a difference. That being said, even just comparing these two values, of course, the plus tonnage is only plus 600 kilos and the plus max is plus 1600. So obviously it is a significant difference in being able to have a extra 1,000 kilos of mass. But again, since neither build is limited by its mass and it's much more likely to be limited by its tonnage, then kind of begs the question, okay, well, do I actually need the plus mass fusion? So depending on how I feel over the weekend / before this event ends, I might just try fusing it again a couple more times, see if I can get mass and then tonnage. We'll see. In any case, it's actually interesting to note too, you could probably get away with using a non-mass engine, so it's what, 2,900 mass off of total. So if I got rid of that, yeah, you'll see I don't even really need an engine for that. Like, I could run a hot red, for instance, but it doesn't really make a difference because the bigger problem is tonnage. Like, I could slap on a tonnage engine, but then I'm only getting, like, the benefit of an extra 1,000 tonnage anyway, because the bar is only also moving about 1,000 to the right. So instead of 16,000, it's 17,000. So it just kind of seems like there's no reason not to use the Colossus or the Giggle in the case of the Galactrax. So I guess in theory you could even just run the hot red. And like in any case, a like plus tonnage fusion would serve the build a lot better than otherwise. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the correct answer is, because at the same time, adding like 600 tonnage is not a significant amount compared to, you know, the other 16,000 of the build. And honestly, probably the biggest difference is going from the 3,600 mass to the 3,000 mass. So that's actually what I'm going to do first off to start with the updates of this build. So that gives me obviously the higher max mass as well, which is negligible at this point. And that gives me another 600 kilos in which I can, you know, build. So, except is it 600? Yes, I'm just bad at math. Okay. So for what I'd like to do with this, guess I should probably start making the timestamps, shouldn't I? Let's see. And voila, excellent. All right, so one of the things I commented about last time I was working on this was the lack of armor I have as an option around the explosive parts. So because I'm running double elephants, of course, that already requires a generator for the carapace cabin, which only runs 10 energy. And then the addition of a engine, or even if I get rid of the engine, which would kind of suck for a couple reasons, but like if I, for instance, use the hot red as well as a reload booster, and it forever pains me that the K1A discharger fits very snugly with the hot red in the Colossus engine space, but the flywheel does not, even though it's the better one by far. But I digress. Like even if I go this route, then I still need another energy for this reload booster, and even if I went with the flywheel. And I mean, like, if I wanted to be like a complete goofy goober, I could, in theory, do this, but you'll see I'm already like overmass. And I wouldn't exactly say it's a smart idea to run a Apollo generator on a blue vehicle in general. So like that is an option, and again would probably make it more of a raid viable thing than a PvP viable thing. But until they add a lightweight 4 energy generator, I don't see that being feasible. And even arguably, even if they had a heavier like 3 energy generator, I'd probably feel a lot safer on this, just due to the blow up ability of this build currently. So basically hedging in on me having to stick with the gas gen, armoring it up significantly is obviously going to be important. When I had the Fury build, if I can manage to flip this here. This is also running a gas gen, so it's running the engine at the back, the Giggle, and its very sexy engine bay, although you can't see it at the moment since of the angle I'm at. And then it's running 12 energy for weapons, which is 13 total. Again, the carapace only has 10. But in any case, oh, I totally forgot I armored the underneath Lamau. Anyway, there's a gas gen on here. but I managed to hide it underneath that Under Armour in the... Oh my god, let's just make things easier for me, one sec. Now that I have a slot, I may as well use it, right? Oh my goodness. Alright. Alright. Very nice. So, the other carapace build that I have the gas gen hidden behind the cabin and on top of frames, and on top of additional Under Armour. So there isn't really a whole lot of risk of that being popped. Because for them to blow that, they'd have to blow a Goliath or blow off the entire back, including the engine, or they'd have to blow off frames underneath, or they have to chew through a bunch of stuff at the top. It seems very unlikely people are going to be able to reach it. Obviously, that risk is a lot bigger with this current build, but just due to the shape of the tank tracks, like they have significantly higher clearance off the ground, but they don't protect a sizable portion of the above ground area. I don't really have the ability to just slap stuff on the side or behind the cab easily. So underneath is kind of the spot I landed on. Now that being said, I do plan on, depending if I have enough time here, I do plan on making 2 different variants. So of this build, for what it's worth. And both of them are basically limited by the exact same thing, which is primarily mass. Like, in theory, if I were to go and be insane and or rich, I could fuse the elephants, and get quite a bit of mass off of those. I could also fuse the engine, whichever one it is that I get. Just, save another 100 or 200 whatever kilos off of the mass of it. The adding plus mass as a fusion probably won't do a whole lot, but in any case, at least getting the extra little mass off of them. And fusing the tank tracks as well for plus tonnage minus mass. Those would all be pretty huge for allowing me to get closer to that max mass limit on this build, but in any case that isn't exactly feasible just due to the cost of fusing epics and the fact that they no longer are tradable, etc., etc. It's kind of just a sunk cost, especially because this is primarily I don't want to say show-off build, but kind of a show-off build insofar as I don't typically use it. But in any case, this is currently the 8-wide version. What I was also thinking of would be interesting is I could make a 10-wide version, because just like with the MBT, this guy, you could have a 8-wide front and then add in the tank headlights. This is actually just the basic version because the deluxe version was limited time. But having these guys slapped on either end, because they fit in with the curve of the front really nicely, obviously, and having it be 10 wide, so it would be obviously a lot more like that. So a little bit flatter and wider, but more importantly, for the sake of the modules, I won't have to undersling them anymore, because there is actually a gap here between the tank tracks and the cabin. Don't really think there's a better way to illustrate this. So this is basically a a 4x1x8 gap currently, 8x4x1. But if I extend the tracks out another pip, then there'll be enough room for me to actually squirrel some modules in there between the cabin and the tracks. So for instance, it would be shifted over kind of like that. And it would be extremely unlikely for things to, theoretically hit those components. Now, it's going to get a lot messier just with the sake of it not being a power of 2 width, because, for instance, there isn't any 10 wide frames. I'd have the option of using a 6 and then a 4, or using 2 4s and then a 2 in the middle, etc. Things would definitely get messy, but in any case, it is one of the other things I want to poke around with, although I presume that I'm going to have much larger issues with the mass, just because volume gets more, it follows a, cube power formula. In any case, volume grows exponentially compared to any of the other measurements, so as it gets slightly wider, it has a bit more surface area and significantly more volume. which is to say that there is going to be a lot more place for parts, and I'm going to want to put parts in, but unless I use less dense pieces of armor, like as you can kind of see, I cheated the side panel here with minivan panel rather than APC parts, which I normally would, just due to the mass restrictions. So even if I, for instance, just added those, I basically completely used up the mass that I gained from the fusion. So yeah, and honestly, like the only thing that's really stopping me from making the Carapace a mass tonnage fusion is primarily the fact that I don't know how tonnage is going to work after the tonnage update, revamp, rework, whatever, whenever it's happening, if it's still happening, because it would suck if I fused it for tonnage and then that stat is replaced with some other worse stat, or it's no longer relevant, or what. Like, I don't know what they plan on doing with fusions when it's reworked. I don't know if it'll do anything useful for this build or what, but yeah, it's kind of the main limiter. Because like I said, I can't foresee a build that would benefit from having a Carapace cabin with more mass than this. Like for me to build up to that, I'd need to put on a third something, and like I wouldn't want to use that. Like I wouldn't want to add a third track, because like where the hell would I put it, especially with me having a cabin in the middle. Like I can't exactly just slap it in the middle here because I have a tank turret there. Like I don't even know what the other options would really be. Like you could maybe slap a couple of hardened tracks at the back or something, and like it's just, I don't know. I don't really care to try and figure out what using it would even be good for, to be honest. And obviously that problem is a lot more obvious on the Goliath one, where like you're already extremely close to the limit. Like there's no reason to add something just to give 500 max mass, or 500 tonnage rather. So I don't know. Anyway, as far as updating this build, so yeah, like that's that's kind of the most obvious option. It's just replacing those two APC roof parts, because then I'm like immediately at the limit. That being said, I feel like the reason why I put those there to begin with is just like because of the reason what I'm going to get into here, which is that I feel like this explosive area definitely needs to be a lot more protected. So what I'd probably go about doing instead would be that kind of works with the shape of it too, which is very nice. Mad lad, I was not expecting it to be like half an hour. Oh my god, and I joined on the wrong device, lol. I was so not expecting you to only be half an hour. I started streaming.
Nice.
Look, am I gonna hop back in here in like half an hour? Are you still gonna be here?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
Also, I'm not a fan of hearing myself speak.
You're echoing on my end. So I think that's a you problem.
I think it just game bar's bad.
I mean, I haven't had this problem with other people, but... Wait, no, I'm echoing on you, you're echoing on me. Yeah, so something's fucky. Okay, let me spend like 5 minutes to finish this stream, and then I will join you, okay? In Discord.
Sounds good.
Right, so for the sake of updating this, I would probably want to... just do that, I guess. Puts things flush. It's still vulnerable from the back, but c'est la vie. Yeah, honestly, like just just getting 600 tonnage is not nearly enough to do with it what I want to do. I don't know, I wonder if making it 10 wide would be the better method, just because then I don't have to have all this under armor. Like I can basically just call it quits at like that point when the frames are covered. Although that looks super thin. Might look better with the wider shape, although I'm sure these guys, yeah, they used under armor as well. I don't know. Yeah. In any case, obviously a couple of options available as far as updating the build. And then of course I overwrote all of that save history. And then I think it's honestly better off just to use a hot red and a discharger than the Colossus, at least for this current version, just for the sake of me being able to get the reload boost and not worry about getting an extra energy point. Although it does kind of suck because you do get a significant power decrease with the lack of a Colossus engine, of course. And the Colossus engine, with the current perk of plus 20% movement perk durability is also very useful when basically all of my side armor is just my tracks, and the hot red's perk is wasted insofar as the wheels get fast reverse speed. So yeah, I don't know, I think this is probably the closest that this is going to get to being like updated. Again, actually, how heavy are these? Might be able to actually put in the digger sides here. It's slightly lighter. Although it does have more risk of getting multiple parts blown off with a explosive, but then that also lets me do that on the back, which is probably a bit safer. I could just reverse that, couldn't I? And put the digger sides up. Since the turret is connected by the buggy floors anyway, it's not such a big deal having these parts up on the roof. Then I can have that at the bottom. There we go. So I think that'll be probably the best I can make this variant. And I will look at... Oh, there we go. That's literally on the tonnage. Wow. Hot. And I will look at doing the 10 wide build once I get back from the somewhat impromptu call with Michael. Excellent.